Hi, welcome to another week of the Matt Report. I'm Sean Bennett from the Chronicle Telegram. Joining me this week, Brad Borneville from, just about everywhere. He's writes for the Chronicle Telegram, Medina Gazette, Akron Beacon Journal. Pretty much if there's a publication in Northeast Ohio, I think you've probably done some time with him.
Pretty close, pretty close. It's fun though. I mean, you get to cover something different every day, but we all know, wrestling's my first love.
Absolutely. All right. As we do every week, we're going to start with the top three performances of the week. We're going to start with Donald Crawford of Firelands. Lorain County League. They had their inaugural tournament this weekend. 8 teams in the league, so it's 8-man brackets. Donald was the number eight seed. He starts off by defeating the number one seed Jerry Ruiz of Clearview 14-9 in the quarterfinals. Then pins number four seed Cody Green of Keystone in the semis, and pins number three seed Tony Governal of Columbia in the final to win the inaugural Lorain County League championship at 152 pounds. And those points were crucial because Firelands, who went 6-2 in dual meets, Keystone was 8-0. They were the top seed going in. Ends up surpassing Keystone and winning that first ever Lorain County League championship.
And what I like about this, a lot of teams are moving their conference championships around and they're making them earlier. I mean, this dude coming in, knocking off the one seed. I mean, postseason, the individual postseason starts here in 2 weeks. This has got to be tons of confidence for this kid just to come in here and do what he did against some of the best in the league.
You let me slip that first ever championship right past you. Huh?
I know, I cringed.
We're going to be talking a little bit more with Donald Crawford here in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. Our next top performance, we're going to go to the state duels. We were both there. Elyria with an amazing run into the final, a breathtaking, right to the end matchup with St. Edward. But they had so many guys that did really well. But we're going to start with Peyton Fenton of Elyria. Obviously, no surprise that he did well. He's a defending or returning state champion as a freshman last year. But he went 3-0, at the Division One dual team state tournament. He opened with a 9-3 win over Upper Arlington's Daniel Beam, who's ranked number 15 in the state. These are all Intermat Ohio Wrestling by Josh Lowe. He's a national high school wrestling analyst for Intermat. So all these rankings are by him. Daniel Beam's ranked number 15 in the state, and Fenton beat him 9-3 to start. Then he won 9-5 in tiebreaker overtime against Brecksville's Caden Jett, who's ranked number 5 in the state. Then he won 9-4 over St. Edward's Sean Seafelt, who is the projected state runner-up in the final. And all three of the matches, I mean, he just really kind of impressed me because he's sometimes a little bit of a streaky wrestler, and I would say maybe a little inconsistent. And you sometimes are wondering, what kind of Peyton Fenton's going to show up on the mat this week, and he was lights out.
Well, and the other thing is, and I've written about this in the past before. I love the state duels being right here where they are because you're getting that state individual tournament feel, that atmosphere right off the bat. I mean, you just named three of the top wrestlers in the state, and to be able to beat them here, it sends that message to that kid that, hey, you know what? You better get back in the room and find something else because what you're doing right now isn't helping. And to me, personally, I think a lot of wrestling is up here, and that's got to be great for Peyton.
Yeah. And then his teammate, Mick Burnett, who we've both covered, I think have covered probably long before his high school years. We were watching him wrestle. Mick Burnett went 3-0. Earning a bonus in all three matches. He opened with an 18-3 technical fall win over Upper Arlington's Jesse Bowers, who's ranked number 12 in the state. Then he won a 20-4 technical fall over Brecksville's Grant Kaza, and then won a 15-3 major decision over St. Edward's Evan Bennett, who's ranked number 5 in the state. Overall, career-wise, Mick Burnett finishes as 19-0 in state dual competition over his 4 years. I think he bonused in 17 of those matches. Has got it done all 4 years, but definitely finished on the right note.
And we talk about Mick a lot, and Nate. You look at those two; they have that last name. I mean, everybody's bringing your A game just because of that last name. This kid hasn't faltered all year. He's been fantastic all year. He's actually one of my most favorite kids to ever cover.
Yeah,
because he's so humble. And he's so good, and he does nothing but get better every year.
Yeah, he's got his dad's ability for a good quote. The Burnetts definitely like to talk wrestling, and they always kind of give you some good info. So.
And they're humble.
Yeah,
and they're humble.
Absolutely.
I love that too.
Those are our top three performances. Before we move on, I just want to give a couple honorable mentions. Fireland senior Peyton Bergdorf, who I know you know very well. You've done some stories on him down at the state tournament. Won his 4th conference title. The first 3 in the Patriot Athletic Conference, and then this inaugural Lorain County League. And he was named the LCL Player of the Year or Wrestler of the Year. Black River's Hunter Yaples and Charlie Wells both won titles. Yaples is the number 5 seed at 138 pounds. Wells is the number 6 seed at 170. Again, that's lower half of the league. They're seeded and they come out and they win titles. So good job on them. And then Illyria's Dylan Shaver and Jake Evans. Dylan Shaver at 126 pounds, Jake Evans 182. Both went 3-0 with 3 pins to state duels, getting Illyria that maximum 18 bonus points that they could possibly get. So just a few other guys that we wanted to shout out before we moved on.
And all good guys. I mean, Charlie Wells has kind of come out of nowhere this year and just really surprised a lot of people. I'm intrigued to see what he does in the next couple weeks here.
Yeah. So again, our top 3 performances: Donald Crawford of Firelands, Peyton Fenton of Illyria, and Mick Burnett of Illyria. Okay, we're now moving on to my favorite move. It's brought to you by Century 21 Deanna Realty. We haven't talked about this guy in a while. It's Firelands Donald Crawford. As I said, we were bringing him back. Donald Crawford, before he actually won that title, we kind of filmed this segment. He wanted to show his tight arm tilt is the move. So we're just going to go right to it. Again, this is my favorite move with Firelands Donald Crawford, bringing you the tight arm tilt.
Hi, I'm Donald Crawford. I'm a junior at Firelands High School, and I'm going to show you my favorite move. It's called a tight arm tilt. So in order to do this move, when you're on the top, you're going to break your arm down. You're going to grab his wrist here with your right hand. You're going to come under the crotch here and grab his elbow. And you're going to roll.
So, that's a pretty standard move. You see that quite often, but he obviously it's kind of nice to show because I'm not a wrestler, so it's kind of nice to see the step by step. And when you see it in fast motion, you kind of miss some of that.
And it's a very good move because it can be a 5-point move pretty quickly if it's done right. The thing you got to worry about though is if when you're bringing them over, you have to make sure all that forward momentum comes with you because you and I have both seen a lot of kids defensive pin in that move. But like I said, if he does it right, and he obviously knows what he's doing, man, that's 2 points on a takedown. Or if you're on top, you're going right to your back for 3 points. It's a really good move.
All right, again, my favorite move with Firelands Donald Crawford, brought to you by Century 21 Deanna Realty. Our next segment, we're going to be talking state duels a little more extensively. Again, we were both down there. It's a great event. It's in its 8th year. And this year was probably, I had Josh on the radio recap show last week, and I was like, oh, this is a pretty unique year because of these all these. And he was kind of like, it's always about the same, and he didn't want to talk about just how special with the top 4 seeds. St. Edward, Illyria, Brecksville, all nationally ranked top 3 seeds. Wadsworth, number 4 seed, who just knocked off Brecksville less than a week, I think, going into this. Going into this, there was a level of anticipation for at least on the Division I bracket of some exciting matches, especially once you got to the semifinals.
Well, Division I and II, because remember, don't forget you had St. Paris, Graham, Louisville, Aurora there, so that bracket was good as well. But I'm telling you, that had to be the best state duels I've ever seen. Division II comes down to an overtime takedown with 17 seconds left.
Yeah.
Division I comes down to Ed's pinning at heavyweight. I mean, it was just, and the atmosphere was incredible.
Yeah, and I was going to say, once we got to the semifinals, the matchups were top notch. Probably a little bit. I kind of wish they were maybe a little bit closer. I think Illyria kind of had it wrapped up after 182. Wadsworth lasted how long against St. Edward?
What happened with Wadsworth is those early matches. There was a Mason Brew match, got taken down with 2 seconds left. Landon Hacker got taken down, I think, with 1 second left. So a couple of those swing matches that should have gone the way of Wadsworth early didn't, and I think Ed's won 8 in a row at one point. So
just kind of got that snowball going.
Once it gets going, in dual meets, that's all you need is just to get that momentum going, and it's tough to stop.
Well, obviously the team Illyria is the team that we kind of deal with here in our area, and we both kind of cover them. You cover them in the off season at Freestyle and Greco Nationals out in Fargo. Then in the first month of the season at Ironman, Brecksville. I get to cover them, obviously, quite extensively throughout the season as well. so in regards to the Illyria matchups, we talk about some of the big matchups. I guess it has to start with Enrique Munguia versus Brecksville's Victor Voinovich. They kind of had a series last year. They met at Ironman where Enrique squeaked out a win. Victor got his revenge at Brecksville, beating Enrique, and then they met again in the state semifinals, and Enrique beat him again. Brecksville thought they were going to possibly make a good move here, bumping up a couple guys to swing the match back their way. Didn't kind of work out the way they had hoped.
Well, and I'll tell you what, Enrique, when Enrique Mangaya is on, he's unbelievable. I mean, he's beaten Derek Fields, he's beaten from Brunswick, he's beaten Voinovich, and I'm telling you, Voinovich was almost pinned both times when he had him on his back. That kid, I tell you, when he gets on a run, he is difficult to stop, and he's just, it's again that momentum thing. When he's going, Enrique is a very good wrestler.
Yeah, he goes up against the projected state champion at 145 pounds, who's nationally ranked. Victor's ranked number 5 in the nation at 145 pounds. And then he follows it up with another matchup against a projected state champion, St. Edward's Bryce Hepner. He's an Avon resident at 152 pounds, who's ranked number 12 in the nation. Not an easy day at the office for Enrique, having to take on 2 nationally ranked guys and projected state champs.
You know, and that's what's funny, because this kid, I mean, the schedule that Eric Burnett puts out is fantastic because you face those kids all the time. So for him, it was, okay, I beat Victor, now I've got, Bryce. But it's not that big of a jump mentally because he's used to that grind. He's used to that, in the Beast of the East tournaments and the Brecksvilles and the Ironman, where you're facing top-notch kids every time.
How about let's look at Bryce Allison, ranked number 3 in the state at 120 versus St. Edward's. Richard Del Santer, ranked number 2, projected state runner-up at 120 pounds. 6-4 loss for Bryce Allison. You saw that match better than I did at one point because I think Bryce had Del Santer on his back, and you almost thought there was a pin there.
100%. And I mean, like we're saying, that's a kid number 2 in the state, where a lot of times, you see that kid and you've already lost the match mentally before you even get on the mat. Bryce goes out, gives him a heck of a match. Like you said, I thought he could have been pinned. So, I mean, that could have been a win very easily. Jimmy Carmody, we all know Jimmy Carmody's resume. A 4-0 loss, only giving up 4 points to Jimmy Carmody is incredible, because Carmody, when he's on top, he is a hammer. He's probably the best kid on top in the state.
You talk about the Nate Burnett versus Jimmy Carney match. That's a potential state semi-state or even state final matchup too at 132 pounds. Close matchup for Nate, and he's been just on fire since that Brecksville run.
Yeah, you know what? That Brecksville run, I think, did a ton for him. Beat 2 state champs and beat a national champ. The confidence you get from that match is just incredible. And what Nate's done since then is not surprising to me at all.
Other state duel stuff, Wadsworth against St. As we already mentioned. Any big individual matchups that you remember from that semifinal?
Well, the St. Paris Graham, the heavyweight, going, it was I think it was either 1-1 or 3-3, going into overtime, and just the electricity there was incredible. There were some great matches everywhere. I thoroughly enjoyed watching Illyria Brecksville. That was just one match after another, just fantastic wrestling.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned St. Paris Graham, them ending their dominant streak in Ohio. I mean, since I've been covering wrestling, I think 2005 was the first time I went down to state. Graham's won everything. They've never lost to state duels. They've never lost, an individual state Division II championship. So this is the first time I've ever got to see in 20 plus years of covering high school wrestling, St. Graham not come out with a gold title.
And I'm telling you what, you should go to the state tournament here on, was it March 13th is the first day.
Yeah.
Graham's won it 19 times in a row. You've got Graham, you've got Lake Catholic, you've got Louisville, you've got Aurora. Division I, we've talked about it out there. I mean, Illyria could win the state title. Eds could win the state title. Wadsworth, if they have enough, can get the state title. Brecksville can get, I mean, there is so much parity this year in the state tournament. It's going to be fantastic to watch, and it's just going to be, I mean, every week is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. All right, our final segment, we kind of have basically an informal chat with the guest co-host every week. Obviously, that'd be you. Let's talk your history with wrestling. I obviously have known you for quite a while, several decades now, and just what kind of gravitated you toward the sport, and Got you. And you're not a wrestler. You didn't wrestle in high school, right?
I
Or
wrestled up until high school.
up until high school.
Up until high
Okay.
school, and then some guy named Jimmy Andres, he was in my weight class. He's now the Kent State coach. He was a 2-time state champ. There was no place for me to go, but I've always loved wrestling.
Mhm.
Always really gravitated towards the sport. But I'm telling you, once about 95, 96, going to a state tournament, man. Once you go to a state tournament and you get to see these kids, and then you get to see, the best of the best. If you go to the Ironman tournament, things like that. Kyle Snyder, everybody knows who Kyle Snyder is. Kyle Snyder wrestled in the Ironman. I mean, David Taylor's a great Penn State wrestler. The Steebers. I mean, you
Yeah.
can just go right down the list of these kids that are just amazing adults right now. And you saw them as kids. The thing I like about wrestling the most is kids own up to wins and losses. There's not that, the quarterback fumbled the ball, the point guard threw the ball out of bounds. It's, hey, you know what? I lost. I have to get better. And they own up to it all the time. To me, it's the greatest sport there is.
You obviously get to cover a great amount of events. Ironman every year, Brecksville, and not just in the high school season. You cover Fargo out there in the summer. You get to go. You're going out to the Minneapolis for the NCAA tournament. Some big national events. FILA, I think we've been at together. What are some of your personal favorite events that you've gotten to cover during your wrestling career?
Well, see, Fargo is great every year
Mhm.
because it's the junior national and the cadet national, which is now I think 16U national. Greco-Roman and freestyle. And freestyle is great to watch. That would probably be my number one event. Nationals too. From a Lorain County standpoint, watching what Ben Darmstadt did his senior season when he went out to Fargo, didn't give up a point, and was named the MVP. I will never forget that. That was one of the most incredible runs I've ever seen.
I was going to say top moments. What are some of your top moments? You meant obviously Darmstadt had to been one of them. Covering Wadsworth during 2010 when they won the state championship had to be kind of cool. I mean, just from a journalistic standpoint, you want to be able to write a variety of things, and writing about a state title has got to be pretty cool.
And that one, I will never forget it. I think it's my most favorite thing I've ever covered, because Wadsworth had 4 state champions. I think they had 12 state qualifiers. And it came down to the second to the last match before they wrapped it up. And actually, there was a match in the middle of the day where Alfredo Gray beat a St. Edward kid for 5th place, and that winds up being the difference in points. It was awesome to cover that, because every 10 minutes the lead was changing. Every 15 minutes you were looking at another match that maybe wasn't a Wadsworth kid, but it was a St. Edward kid facing somebody else. There was so much going on that weekend. It was incredible.
Any I know you got Minneapolis coming up for the NCAA's, but any other kind of to-do list, bucket list things? I mean, I'm sure you and I both would like to maybe cover Olympic wrestling. That'd be awesome. But anything else that you want to kind of get done?
I would love to see the World Team Trial or the Olympic Team Trials. I think are they in Pittsburgh this year? Yeah, or no, they're at Penn State, right?
I'm not sure.
I think they're at Penn State this year. I would love to go down there and watch that. I mean, the intensity, just Jaden Cox versus Kyle Snyder. I mean, that's going to be for 197. That's going to be for who gets the Olympic spot. It's just watching that level of wrestling is incredible.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on for this week's episode. Obviously, super thanks to our sponsors. Cobos Insurance Center is our title sponsor for the Matt Report. Section 21 Deanna Realty sponsors My Favorite Move. Thanks to Kristen Bauer behind the camera. And most of all, thanks to you, the viewer, for stopping by again. We'll see you next week on the Matt Report. The Matt Report, brought to you by Cobos Insurance Center.